Ramon Hush Puppy Abbas. What makes someone believe they can fool the entire world? The old internet jokes about Nigerian princes asking for money seemed almost quaint compared to what Ramon Abbas accomplished. He wasn't sending desperate emails from a supposedly royal family member. Instead, he was selling a dream through the endless scroll of Instagram, a lifestyle so opulent that millions stopped to watch. For Abbas, the answer to fooling the world lay in perception itself. But every photograph, every private jet, every designer label came with a price his followers never saw. When the illusion crumbled, it revealed one of the most elaborate fraud operations the digital age had witnessed, proving that the real Nigerian princes of modern fraud don't beg for help. They flaunt wealth so convincingly that victims come to them. Ramon Olorunwa Abbas was born on October 11th, 1982, in Lagos, Nigeria. Long before the world knew him as Hush Puppy, he was navigating the streets of Lagos, reportedly working as a second-hand clothing trader. Life was ordinary. Far removed from the gilded world he would later project online. Somewhere along the way, Abbas discovered that appearance could be currency and trust could be weaponized. By the time he relocated to Dubai, Abbas had reinvented himself. On Instagram, he became Ray Hush Puppy, the billionaire Gucci master. His feed was a curated gallery of excess. Bentleys, Ferraris, and Rolls-Royces with the hashtag All Mine. Photos showed him boarding helicopters in Monaco, getting facials at the Christian Dior spa in Paris, dining at Nobu overlooking the Mediterranean. He posed with international footballers, celebrities, and Nigerian politicians. "Thank you, Lord, for the many blessings," he wrote beneath a photo of another luxury car. "Continue to shame those waiting for me to be shamed." To his 2 million followers, Abbas was living proof that dreams could come true. He claimed to be a real estate developer, a businessman who had worked hard. Young people across Africa saw him as inspiration, someone who had made it. But federal investigators were seeing something else. They were watching a man who wasn't building wealth. He was stealing it, laundering it, broadcasting it as if daring someone to stop him. Behind the Gucci and gold watches, Abbas was orchestrating business email compromise schemes spanning continents. These scams were deceptively simple but devastatingly effective. Criminals would gain access to corporate email accounts, impersonate executives, and convince victims to wire large sums to fraudulent accounts. In October 2019, Abbas and his conspirators targeted a New York law firm. Using a spoofed email address, they tricked a paralegal into transferring over $922,000 meant for a client's real estate deal. The money vanished. That was just one operation in a sprawling web. Abbas conspired to launder $14.7 million stolen from the Bank of Valletta in Malta, a cyber heist linked to North Korean hackers. He targeted an English Premier League football club, attempting to steal $124 million. He defrauded a Qatari businessman seeking a loan to build a school. Federal prosecutors estimated that during an 18-month period, Abbas conspired to launder over $300 million. The scale was staggering. What Abbas didn't realize was that his Instagram feed wasn't just attracting fans. It was building a federal case. Investigators used his birthday party photos, location tags, and displays of wealth to verify his identity and track movements. Each post became evidence. Each flex became a confession. In June 2020, Dubai police executed Operation Fox Hunt 2. They raided Abbas's residence at the exclusive Palazzo Versace resort, arresting him alongside several accomplices. Authorities seized nearly $41 million in cash, 13 luxury cars worth $6.8 million, and digital evidence, including email addresses, of nearly 2 million potential victims. Abbas was handed over to the FBI and extradited to the United States. For months, he maintained his innocence. But in April 2021, standing in a California courtroom, Abbas pleaded guilty to conspiracy to engage in money laundering. The man who once boasted about inspiring young people now admitted he had built his empire on lies and theft. On November 7, 2022, Judge Otis Wright sentenced him to 135 months in federal prison and ordered him to pay $1.7 million in restitution. Today, Ramon Abbas is incarcerated at FCI Fort Dix in New Jersey, with a projected release date of August 6, 2029. The Instagram account that once showcased his empire has gone silent, though it has gained hundreds of thousands of new followers since his arrest. People still scroll through his old posts, marveling at the audacity, the confidence. His story isn't just about crime. It's about the digital age we live in, where image can be manufactured, success can be faked, and millions are hungry for inspiration enough to believe almost anything. Abbas didn't just steal money. He stole trust. And for everyone who once looked up to him, the lesson was clear. Sometimes the most beautiful things we see online are carefully constructed lies, and the price of believing them can be far greater than anyone imagines. Jen Shah, she lived in a mansion worth millions. Her closets overflowed with designer clothes and handbags that cost more than most people's cars. On television screens across America, Jennifer Shah appeared as the picture of success, a woman who seemed to have it all figured out. But behind the luxury and the cameras, she was orchestrating something far darker than her audience could have imagined. While viewers watched her throw lavish parties and navigate drama with her castmates, federal investigators were closing in on a scheme that had been running for nearly a decade, leaving hundreds of lives destroyed in its wake. Jennifer Shah was born on October 4, 1973, and grew up in Utah after moving from Hawaii at age 6. She married Sharif Shah while they were students at the University of Utah, and together they raised 2 sons. By the time she joined the cast of The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City in November 2020, she had cultivated an image of wealth and entrepreneurial success. She claimed to run multiple businesses and presented herself as a savvy businesswoman who had earned her fortune through legitimate means. Her life seemed enviable, complete with expensive cars, a staff of assistants, and the kind of lifestyle that reality television audiences love to watch. But the source of her wealth was far from what it appeared to be. From at least 2012 until March 2021, Shah was running a nationwide telemarketing operation that specifically targeted older Americans. The scheme worked through what prosecutors described as a coordinated effort to sell fake business opportunities to people who were looking to build online businesses or supplement their retirement income. These weren't legitimate services. They were empty promises wrapped in professional-sounding sales pitches, designed to extract as much money as possible from people who could least afford to lose it. Here's how the operation functioned. Shah and her team would identify potential targets, people who had shown interest in starting online businesses or improving their financial situations. These individuals were labeled as leads, and their contact information was sold to telemarketing sales floors that Shah either controlled or worked with. Once someone was contacted, they would be sold courses or services that supposedly taught website building, online marketing, or business coaching. The promises were big. The reality was that these programs had little to no value. But the telemarketers didn't stop there. As soon as someone completed one program, they would receive another call selling them the next level of service. Then another, and another. The calls continued until their bank accounts were empty and their credit cards maxed out. The victims were real people with real dreams. A 75-year-old woman from North Carolina lost $47,000, more than half of her retirement savings. A 44-year-old woman from Iowa ended up filing for bankruptcy after spending $44,000 on credit cards for courses that led nowhere. A World War II veteran lost over $100,000. A widow in her 70s lost nearly $10,000 on a program that promised to teach her computer skills, but left her with nothing but debt and harassment from telemarketers who wouldn't stop calling even after she realized she'd been conned. These weren't just financial losses. People lost their homes. They couldn't afford medication. Some became homeless. The emotional toll was just as devastating as the financial damage. What makes Shah's role particularly disturbing is that she wasn't just a participant. According to federal prosecutors, she was an integral leader of the scheme. She directed operations, sold leads to other fraudsters, and even operated a sales floor in Manhattan. When the Federal Trade Commission began investigating and her co-conspirators started getting arrested, Shah didn't stop. Instead, She took steps to hide her involvement. She directed others to lie, put businesses in other people's names, required payment in cash, told people to delete text messages and electronic documents, and even moved some operations overseas to avoid detection. On March 30th, 2021, as Bravo cameras were rolling for Season 2 of The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, federal agents arrested Shah. The moment was captured on the show, with Shah abruptly leaving a van as her castmates were about to head on a trip to Vail. Her assistant, Stuart Smith, was also arrested. Initially, Shah proclaimed her innocence loudly and publicly. She even used the tagline for Season 2, "The only thing I'm guilty of is being Shah-mazing," which prosecutors later noted appeared to mock the serious charges against her. For over a year, Shah maintained her innocence on the show and in public statements. She sold merchandise declaring her innocence. She hired high-powered attorneys. But on July 11th, 2022, just days before her trial was set to begin, Shah changed her plea to guilty on one count of conspiracy to commit wire fraud. The evidence against her was overwhelming. On January 6th, 2023, a federal judge sentenced Shah to 78 months in prison. She was also ordered to pay $6.5 million in restitution and forfeit $6.5 million along with luxury items. During her sentencing, Shah apologized and broke down crying, particularly when addressing her younger son. She promised to repay every cent, though when the judge asked how she planned to do that, her answer was vague. She mentioned using her platform after prison. Shah began serving her sentence in February 2023 at a federal prison camp in Texas. Her time behind bars was reduced multiple times for good behavior, and she was released in December 2024, having served 33 months of her sentence. The early release sparked outrage among victims and their advocates, many of whom felt she should have served her full term given the scale of destruction she caused. What drove someone who appeared to have so much to commit such harm? Was it the addiction to the lifestyle she portrayed on television? The need to maintain an image that required constant funding? Or was there something deeper, a willingness to view other human beings merely as sources of money to fuel her own desires? The answer likely involves all of these things. Shah built her empire on the broken dreams and empty bank accounts of people who trusted the wrong voice on the other end of the phone. And when she finally faced the consequences, the damage to hundreds of lives had already been done. Anna Sorokin. In the world of Manhattan's elite, where trust was currency and appearances were everything, one woman understood the game better than most. She knew exactly which hotels to stay at, which parties to attend, and which names to drop. She moved through art galleries and exclusive restaurants with the confidence of someone who belonged there. But Anna Sorokin wasn't a German heiress with a $67 million trust fund. She was a truck driver's daughter from Russia who had invented an identity so convincing that even New York's most sophisticated circles couldn't see through it until it was too late. Born on January 23, 1991, near Moscow, Anna Sorokin grew up in circumstances far removed from the wealth she would later claim. Her father worked as a truck driver, and her mother owned a small convenience store. When Anna was 16, her family relocated to Germany, settling in a small town in the western part of the country. She attended a local Catholic school where she struggled to fit in and had difficulty learning German. But during these formative years, something else was taking root. Anna became fascinated with fashion, devouring magazines like Vogue and following fashion blogs obsessively. The images of glamour and luxury seemed to call to her, offering a vision of a life that felt more real than her own modest circumstances. After finishing school, Anna moved to London briefly before landing an internship at Purple, a French fashion magazine, in Paris. It was there, in the city of reinvention, that she began calling herself Anna Delvey. When she transferred to Purple's New York office in 2013, she brought this new identity with her. She quickly quit her internship position, but by then, she had already begun weaving the elaborate fiction that would define the next several years of her life. The persona Anna created was precise and deliberate. She told people she was a German heiress from Cologne with a massive trust fund controlled by her wealthy father. The story changed depending on who was asking. Some heard her father worked in solar panels. Others believed he dealt in antiques or oil, and still others thought he was a diplomat. She spoke with what observers described as an unplaceable European accent, neither fully German nor Russian, adding to her mysterious allure. And she lived the part completely, staying in expensive hotels, throwing $100 bills as tips, and surrounding herself with the kind of people who could validate her story simply by association. At the center of her scheme was the Anna Delvey Foundation, an ambitious project for a members-only art club and foundation. She created an 80-page brochure complete with architectural renderings and a carefully curated advisory board that included real names from New York's elite circles. She held meetings with Gabriel Calatrava, son of the famous architect Santiago Calatrava, and André Balish, owner of the Chateau Marmont. She networked with Martin Shkreli, who would later be convicted of securities fraud, and Billy McFarland, the man behind the disastrous Fire Festival. She even created a fake business manager named Peter Haneke, using a voice distortion app to impersonate him during phone calls about her supposed wealth. The audacity of it was staggering, yet people believed her. But maintaining a fake fortune requires real money, and Anna's methods for obtaining it grew increasingly bold. She would stay at luxury hotels like the Beekman and 11 Howard, racking up bills of $30,000 or more, then claim her credit cards weren't working or that wire transfers were delayed. She deposited fraudulent checks totaling $160,000 into a Citibank account and withdrew $70,000 before the deception was discovered. She convinced friends to pay for trips, promising reimbursement that never came. Rachel DeLoach Williams, a photo editor at Vanity Fair, paid $62,000 for a luxury trip to Morocco after Anna claimed her credit card stopped working. Williams was left scrambling to pay her rent while Anna made excuse after excuse. By mid-2017, Anna's elaborate construction began collapsing. She was evicted from the Beekman Hotel after failing to pay an $11,000 bill. She tried the same routine at the W New York downtown and was evicted after just 2 days. She became homeless, crying to friends and begging for places to stay. When she tried to leave a restaurant without paying, claiming she could get a friend to cover the bill, the Manhattan district attorney was already building a case against her. Anna was arrested in October 2017. Initially held at Rikers Island without bail, she faced charges for stealing approximately $275,000 through multiple schemes. Her trial in 2019 became a media sensation, with observers fascinated by her courtroom fashion choices as much as by the details of her crimes. Her defense attorney tried to frame her actions as ambition and moxie, arguing she was simply following New York's unwritten rule of fake it until you make it. The judge wasn't buying it, noting Anna showed no remorse and seemed more concerned about who would play her in the eventual movie. In April 2019, Anna was convicted on 8 counts, including grand larceny and theft of services. She received a sentence of 4 to 12 years in prison. During her time behind bars, she sold the rights to her story to Netflix for $320,000, which she used to pay fines and restitution. After serving just under 2 years, she was released in February 2021 for good behavior. But 6 weeks later, Immigration and Customs Enforcement arrested her for overstaying her visa. Since then, Anna has lived under house arrest in Manhattan's East Village while fighting deportation to Germany. She launched a podcast, sold artwork she created in prison for hundreds of thousands of dollars, and even competed on Dancing with the Stars while wearing an ankle monitor. When asked if she felt remorse, her answer was revealing. She told interviewers she didn't see her actions as a crime at all. What drives someone to construct such an elaborate fiction? Was it desperation to escape a modest background, or something deeper? Anna Sorokin understood that in certain circles, the appearance of wealth could function as wealth itself, at least for a while. She knew that people wanted to believe in her, that they wanted to be part of whatever exclusive world she seemed to represent. And she used that understanding without hesitation, leaving behind a trail of unpaid bills and broken trust. Her story isn't just about fraud. It's about the power of belief and the question of how well we really know the people we choose to trust. Heather Morgan. She called herself the crocodile of Wall Street. Her music videos were bizarre spectacles of neon wigs, leopard print, and cringeworthy lyrics that made viewers wonder if they were watching performance art or a fever dream. Heather Morgan cultivated an online persona that was impossible to ignore, positioning herself as an entrepreneur, tech writer, and self-described misfit rapper under the name Razzlecan. But while the internet laughed at her outlandish videos and questionable rhymes, Morgan was quietly sitting on one of the biggest cryptocurrency heists in history. When federal agents finally connected the dots, the world discovered that the rapper who proclaimed herself queen of the crypto realm had actually been helping to launder billions in stolen digital currency. Heather Morgan was born in 1990 and grew up in California. She studied economics at the University of California, Davis, and later built a career in marketing and entrepreneurship. By her early 30s, she had founded SalesFolk, a New York-based company specializing in email marketing and copywriting. She contributed articles to Forbes and Incorporated magazine, offering business advice and insights on social engineering tactics. On the surface, she appeared to be a driven professional making her mark in the tech and business world. But Morgan also had another side, one that would become infamous for all the wrong reasons. Around 2014, Morgan began creating music videos under the name Razzlecan. The videos were deliberately outrageous, featuring Morgan in wild costumes, rapping about Wall Street, crypto, and being a misfit. Titles like Versace Bedouin showcased her awkward delivery and intentionally absurd aesthetic. She described Razzlecan as a satirical commentary on entrepreneurship and society, and some viewers appreciated this self-aware humor. Others simply found it uncomfortable to watch. Either way, the videos went viral for their strangeness, making Morgan a recognizable figure in certain online circles. What no one realized was that this eccentric online personality was connected to something far more serious. In August 2016, hackers breached the Bitfinex cryptocurrency exchange and stole 119,754 Bitcoin. At the time, the stolen currency was worth roughly $71 million. But as Bitcoin's value skyrocketed over the following years, that stolen fortune grew to billions. The hacker behind the breach was Morgan's husband, Ilya Lichtenstein, a tech entrepreneur she had met years earlier. He executed the theft using sophisticated techniques to access Bitfinex's network and authorize thousands of unauthorized transactions. Once the Bitcoin was in his possession, the real challenge began. How do you turn stolen digital currency into usable money without getting caught? That's where Morgan came in. According to federal prosecutors, Morgan learned about the theft in early 2020, for years after it happened. Rather than reporting it, she chose to help Liechtenstein hide the money. Together, they launched a complex laundering operation designed to obscure the origins of the stolen funds. They created fake identities and set up accounts on darknet marketplaces and cryptocurrency exchanges. They used mixing services like Bitcoin Fog to scramble transaction trails, making it harder to trace the money back to the original theft. They converted Bitcoin into other cryptocurrencies through a technique called chain hopping, moving funds across multiple digital currencies to break the connection to Bitfinex. They even funneled money through accounts in Russia and Ukraine, purchasing gold coins and depositing funds into various business accounts to legitimize the cash. Between 2016 and their arrest in 2022, the couple successfully laundered about 25,000 Bitcoin, roughly 1/5 of the total stolen amount. Most of the remaining Bitcoin sat untouched in digital wallets, too risky to move as law enforcement closed in. Federal authorities, led by investigators from the IRS Criminal Investigation Division and the FBI, spent years tracing the blockchain transactions. In February 2022, agents executed a search warrant at the couple's Manhattan apartment. What they found inside was extraordinary. Agents discovered records linking Morgan and Liechtenstein to the laundering scheme, along with access to the digital wallets containing billions in stolen Bitcoin. The couple was arrested and charged with conspiracy to commit money laundering and conspiracy to defraud the United States. The case immediately captured public attention, not just because of the staggering amount of money involved, but because of Morgan's bizarre online persona. Suddenly, Razzle-Can wasn't just a quirky internet curiosity. She was a federal defendant in one of the largest financial crimes in American history. The contrast between her music videos and her criminal charges felt surreal, and media outlets couldn't resist the story. In August 2023, both Morgan and Lichtenstein pleaded guilty. Lichtenstein admitted to orchestrating the hack itself, while Morgan acknowledged her role in helping to launder the proceeds. During the legal proceedings, prosecutors noted that Morgan had cooperated with authorities and provided information about other cryptocurrency crimes. They also acknowledged that her involvement was secondary to her husband's, who had planned and executed the theft years before telling her about it. Still, her participation in the laundering operation was significant enough to warrant serious consequences. In November 2024, Heather Morgan was sentenced to 18 months in federal prison. Her husband received a harsher sentence of 5 years. The judge noted Morgan's remorse and the fact that she hadn't directly benefited much from the stolen funds. Most of the Bitcoin had been recovered by federal agents, making it one of the largest seizures in law enforcement history. Today, that recovered Bitcoin is worth more than $10 billion. Just hours after her sentencing, Morgan posted a video on social media, seemingly upbeat and promising to tell more of her story once the legal case concluded. She continued to embrace her Razzle-Can persona, even releasing a new music video in January 2025 titled Razzle-Can versus the United States. In it, she wore an ankle monitor and rapped about her case, maintaining the satirical tone that had defined her online presence. Morgan began serving her sentence in February 2025 at a federal facility in California. The story of Heather Morgan raises uncomfortable questions about identity and complicity. Was she a misguided partner drawn into her husband's crime? Or did she willingly embrace the opportunity to profit from theft? Her defenders point to the fact that she wasn't involved in the original hack and cooperated with authorities. Her critics argue that once she learned about the stolen billions, she had a choice, and she chose to help hide the money rather than report it. What's undeniable is that Morgan's quest for attention and her desire to be seen as a bold misfit entrepreneur led her down a path that ended not in internet fame, but in a prison cell. And the question that lingers is whether she truly understands the harm caused, or if she still sees herself as simply misunderstood. Mike, the situation Sorrentino. What happens when fame becomes a drug more addictive than anything sold on the streets? For Mike Sorrentino, the answer played out on reality television screens across America, then in a federal courtroom in Newark, New Jersey. He had turned abs and attitude into millions of dollars, but somewhere between the cameras and the cash, he forgot that everyone has to pay their fair share. The fall from MTV stardom to federal prisoner became a cautionary tale about the price of thinking you're above the law. Michael Paul Sorrentino was born on July 4th, 1981, in West New Brighton, Staten Island, New York. He grew up in Manalapan, New Jersey, where he graduated from high school in 1999. Before television made him a household name, Mike worked as an assistant manager at a fitness center on Staten Island, earning a modest living far removed from the spotlight. After losing that job at 25, he turned to underwear modeling, capitalizing on the physique that would eventually become his signature. His nickname, The Situation, reportedly came from moments when his appearance in public would create awkward situations between couples. It was a joke that would become a brand worth millions. Everything changed in 2009 when MTV premiered Jersey Shore, a reality show following a group of young men and women living together in a beach house in Seaside Heights, New Jersey. Mike Sorrentino wasn't just a cast member. He became the breakout star, the walking embodiment of gym culture, tanning beds, and carefully styled hair. His catchphrases entered popular culture. His abs became iconic. By 2010, he was earning over $5 million annually, second only to Kim Kardashian among reality television personalities. Endorsement deals flooded in from Devotion Vodka, Reebok, and GNC. He appeared on Dancing with the Stars, released a workout DVD, launched a clothing line, and published an autobiography. Fame had arrived, and it brought money in amounts that seemed impossible just years earlier. But Mike and his brother Mark weren't content with simply enjoying their success. They established businesses including MPS Entertainment LLC and Situation Nation, Inc. to leverage Mike's celebrity status. What came next would change everything. Between 2010 and 2012, Mike earned $8.9 million. The problem wasn't the earnings. The problem was what he chose to do with them, or rather, what he chose not to do. During those years, Mike took steps to hide his income from the government. He concealed cash payments, failed to file a personal tax return in 2011, and instead filed false corporate returns that didn't reflect his true earnings. Even more concerning, he engaged in something called structuring, making multiple cash deposits of less than $10,000 into various bank accounts on the same day. Why does that matter? Because banks are required to report deposits of $10,000 or more to federal authorities. Mike knew this, and he deliberately broke up his deposits to avoid triggering those reports. His brother Mark assisted by providing false information to their accountants, ensuring that tax returns underreported their total income by significant amounts. Federal investigators began watching. In September 2014, charges were filed. The brothers faced accusations of tax fraud related to nearly $9 million in income. Additional charges came in April 2017, including tax evasion and structuring funds to evade currency transaction reports. The walls were closing in, but Mike continued appearing on television, returning to film Jersey Shore Family Vacation, even as his legal troubles mounted. His life had become complicated in other ways, too. He had struggled with painkiller addiction following an injury on Dancing with the Stars in 2010, entering rehabilitation multiple times. Finally, on January 19, 2018, Mike stood before a judge and pleaded guilty to one count of tax evasion as part of a plea agreement. His brother Mark pleaded guilty to aiding in the preparation of fraudulent tax returns. The message from federal prosecutors was clear. Fame doesn't exempt anyone from the law. Being a celebrity doesn't mean you get to cheat the system while everyone else follows the rules. On October 5, 2018, sentencing arrived at the United States District Court for the District of New Jersey in Newark. Mike's castmates from Jersey Shore filled the courtroom, showing support for their friend. The judge sentenced Mark to 2 years in federal prison. Then came Mike's turn. He received 8 months in prison, 2 years of supervised release, 500 hours of community service, and was ordered to pay $123,913 in restitution along with a $10,000 fine. Mike began serving his sentence at the Federal Correctional Institution in Otisville, New York. On Thursday morning, September 12, 2019, he walked out a free man after completing his time. His wife Lauren and his castmates celebrated his release. But Mike Sorrentino was now a convicted felon, and that reality would never change. Today, Mike has rebuilt his life in unexpected ways. He hosts a true crime series called Statute of Limitations, where former offenders share their stories. He released a memoir in 2023 titled Reality Check, making the best of the situation, discussing his addictions, his financial mistakes, and his time in prison. He speaks openly about learning from his past, refusing to let his circumstances define him, but instead allowing them to refine who he's become. His journey raises questions about responsibility, privilege, and consequence. Can someone truly change after paying their debt to society? Mike Sorrentino believes the answer is yes, and he's spending his second chance trying to prove it. Brittany Dawn, can someone package broken promises as self-empowerment and convince thousands to pay for it? Brittany Dawn Davis found the answer through carefully filtered Instagram posts and motivational captions about overcoming her struggles. She sold dreams of transformation to young women desperate for guidance, claiming she had walked the same difficult path they were traveling. But the personalized coaching sessions never came. the individual attention went unanswered. What followers bought wasn't mentorship. It was an assembly line operation disguised as care, and when the complaints started flooding in, an entire state decided enough was enough. Brittany Dawn Davis built her presence on social media throughout the early 2010s by positioning herself as someone who understood what it meant to struggle with eating disorders and body image. Her posts showed a toned physique, healthy meals arranged beautifully on plates, and captions about discipline mixed with self-love. To her followers, many of them teenage girls and young women battling their own relationships with food and exercise, she represented hope. Here was someone who claimed to have walked through darkness and emerged stronger. She called herself an eating disorder soldier, a phrase that suggested both experience and expertise. In 2014, Davis launched Brittany Dawn Fitness LLC. The business model seemed straightforward. Customers could purchase personalized fitness and nutrition plans ranging from $92 for a one-time consultation to $300 for 3 months of coaching. The marketing promised individualized attention, customized meal plans based on each person's goals and challenges, personalized workout routines, and regular check-ins with Davis herself. The website described her as a coach, a confidant, a biggest supporter and friend who would push clients, mold them, and help them become who they always wanted to be. For people struggling, it sounded like exactly what they needed. What customers received told a different story. Complaints began surfacing as early as 2015. People reported receiving identical meal plans regardless of their individual needs or goals. Some who needed to gain weight received weight loss plans. Others paid for daily or weekly check-ins, but heard nothing after an initial generic welcome message. When they did get responses from Davis, they were often impersonal phrases like, "That's my girl," "You're killing it," or "You've got this, babe," copied and pasted across multiple conversations. The personalization they paid for never materialized. By 2018, frustrated customers had created a Facebook group called Brittany Dawn Fitness Business Complaints. What started as a few people sharing similar experiences quickly grew to nearly 3,000 members, all with remarkably consistent stories. They had trusted Davis because she positioned herself as someone who understood eating disorders. They believed her credentials implied training. Instead, they found themselves with plans that either ignored their specific needs or made their conditions worse. One woman who weighed less than 80 pounds at the time chose Davis specifically because she advertised herself as knowledgeable about eating disorders. The plan she received was dangerously inadequate for someone needing to gain weight. Another customer reported nearly passing out from following the nutrition guidelines Davis provided. When complaints started appearing on social media, Davis would delete them from her profiles, but the volume became impossible to silence. A petition titled "Stop Brittany Dawn Fitness Scams" collected over 15,000 signatures. The pressure mounted until February 2019, when Davis posted an apology video on YouTube. She appeared on Good Morning America that same month, telling the host she had jumped into an industry with no instruction manual and was doing the best she could. She admitted to asking some customers who received refunds to sign non-disclosure agreements to keep them from speaking publicly about their experiences. Then she deleted the apology video. The Texas Attorney General's office had been receiving complaints since 2019. By February 2022, they filed a lawsuit against Davis and Brittany Dawn Fitness LLC for violating state consumer protection laws. The legal documents laid out years of deceptive practices. According to the state, Davis sold thousands of supposedly personalized plans, but delivered generic content. She claimed expertise in treating eating disorders without any formal training. She charged shipping fees for digital products sent via email. She ignored customer complaints or offered only partial refunds. Court filings showed that over $1.5 million in deposits had flowed into Davis's PayPal account from customer payments through her website. The lawsuit detailed at least 14 customers with eating disorders who felt misled by Davis's claims of special knowledge. These weren't abstract numbers. They were people whose trust had been weaponized for profit. One woman gained 8 to 9 pounds in her first week following Davis's plan, a development she described as pushing her back into her eating disorder after years of recovery work. Davis initially planned to fight. On social media, she framed herself as a victim of cancel culture, posting about how she had been labeled with every false title imaginable. But as the trial date of May 15th, 2023 approached, she changed course. On April 25, 2023, mediation resulted in a settlement. The final judgment came in June 2023. Davis agreed to pay $400,000, broken down into $300,000 in civil penalties and $100,000 in restitution, payable over 3 years. An additional $131,320 in attorney's fees would become due if she violated the permanent injunctions placed against her. Those injunctions were specific. Davis could no longer offer or sell nutrition or fitness plans that included personalized nutrition assessments, one-on-one coaching, personalized workout routines, or daily and weekly check-ins unless she actually provided those services. She couldn't represent herself as having special knowledge or training in treating eating disorders. She couldn't charge shipping fees for digital products. The settlement required her to admit wrongdoing, though it noted her claim that failures came from being overwhelmed by customer volume rather than deliberate fraud. Today, Brittany Dawn Davis remains active on social media, with close to 500,000 Instagram followers and 1.3 million on TikTok. Her content has shifted dramatically. She now posts about Christianity, foster parenting, and faith-based living. Her fitness website remains online, but no longer allows purchases. She hosts Christian retreats, charging up to $300 per ticket. Many of her new followers have no idea about the lawsuit or the thousands of customers who felt betrayed. A Reddit group with over 40,000 members monitors her activity, but her follower count continues growing. Billy McFarland. Imagine promising paradise and delivering chaos. Picture thousands of people arriving on a remote island expecting luxury villas and gourmet meals, only to find disaster relief tents and cheese sandwiches. This wasn't a natural catastrophe or an honest mistake. It was the result of deliberate lies told by a young entrepreneur who couldn't stop himself from chasing fame and fortune, even when reality screamed that his promises were impossible to keep. Billy McFarland became the face of millennial fraud, and his festival became a symbol of everything wrong with influencer culture and social media hype. William Zervakos McFarland was born on December 11th, 1991, in New Jersey. He grew up in a wealthy entrepreneurial family and showed early signs of business ambition. By his early 20s, McFarland had already launched his first venture, a company called Magnus's. Founded in 2013, Magnus's marketed itself as an exclusive membership club for millennials, offering a black card that promised access to special events and experiences. McFarland raised $1.5 million from investors to launch the company. But the promises far exceeded what Magnus's could actually deliver, and complaints from members began piling up about events that never happened and perks that didn't exist. Rather than learning from these problems, McFarland moved on to something bigger. He founded Fire Media and developed an app designed to book music talent for events. The app never gained much traction, but McFarland saw an opportunity to promote it through a massive marketing campaign. That campaign would become the Fire Festival, scheduled for 2 weekends in April 2017 on a private island in the Bahamas. McFarland partnered with rapper Ja Rule to promote the event, and together they created one of the most effective social media marketing campaigns in history. The promotional video for Fire Festival featured supermodels like Bella Hadid, Emily Ratajkowski, and Kendall Jenner on pristine beaches. The message was clear. This would be an exclusive luxury experience combining music, art, and adventure. Tickets range from $500 to over $100,000 for VIP packages. The website promised private villas, gourmet meals prepared by celebrity chefs, and performances from major artists. Nearly 5,000 people bought tickets, many of them wealthy young professionals and influencers eager to be part of what looked like the event of the year. What they didn't know was that almost none of the infrastructure existed. McFarland had secured very little of what he promised. He hadn't confirmed most of the musical acts. The luxury villas were actually disaster relief tents from FEMA. The gourmet meals were pre-packaged sandwiches in styrofoam containers. There was no reliable water supply, inadequate security, and no medical facilities. When the first guests arrived on April 26, 2017, they found chaos. Photos and videos quickly spread across social media, showing the stark reality of the situation. People were stranded on the island with nowhere to sleep and nothing to eat. The festival was canceled within hours, but thousands of attendees were stuck in the Bahamas trying to find flights home. The failure went viral instantly, becoming a cultural moment that exposed the gap between social media promises and reality. But what many people didn't realize at first was that this wasn't just incompetence. McFarland had been lying to investors for years. According to federal prosecutors, he had raised over $24 million by providing fake financial documents to potential backers. He claimed Fire Media was worth $90 million when the company had done only about $60,000 in business. He told investors he had sold Magnus's for $40 million when he hadn't sold it at all. He promised he had purchased event cancellation insurance when no such policy existed. Federal agents arrested McFarland in June 2017 at his Manhattan home. He was charged with wire fraud. But remarkably, while out on bail awaiting trial, McFarland launched another scheme. He created a company called NYC VIP Access, claiming to sell tickets to exclusive events like the Met Gala, Burning Man, Coachella, and major sporting events. He collected approximately $150,000 from about 30 victims over nearly a year. The tickets either never materialized or were different for what customers paid for. McFarland didn't actually have access to most of the events he claimed to be selling. When federal agents questioned him about this new fraud, he lied again, denying his involvement. In March 2018, McFarland pleaded guilty to 2 counts of wire fraud. Then in July 2018, he pleaded guilty to additional charges of wire fraud, bank fraud, and making false statements to federal agents. The judge who sentenced him called him a serial fraudster. In October 2018, McFarland received 6 years in federal prison and was ordered to forfeit $26 million in restitution. McFarland served nearly 4 years of his sentence at a federal prison in Ohio before his early release in March 2022. He was placed on supervised release for 3 years, required to work at least 30 hours per week, and ordered to continue paying restitution to his victims. Since his release, McFarland has announced plans for Fire Festival 2 and other ventures, despite still owing $26 million. His attempts to launch new festivals in Mexico and Honduras have drawn skepticism from observers who question whether he has genuinely changed or is simply repeating old patterns. The story of Billy McFarland raises uncomfortable questions about accountability and second chances. Can someone who defrauded victims while awaiting trial for fraud ever be trusted again? Is the pursuit of fame and money so addictive that some people can't stop even when facing serious consequences? McFarland's case became a cautionary tale about influencer culture, the danger of believing polished social media campaigns, and the ease with which skilled salespeople can manipulate trust. His victims included not just wealthy festival attendees, but workers in the Bahamas who were never paid and investors who lost everything. And the question that remains is whether someone who showed such compulsive dishonesty can ever truly reform, or whether the next scheme is always just around the corner. Martin Shkreli. There's something uniquely American about the villain who smirks while the world watches. Martin Shkreli didn't just commit fraud. He performed it with a theatrical contempt that made him a symbol of everything people feared about corporate greed and pharmaceutical power. While other executives hid behind lawyers and carefully worded statements, Shkreli went on Twitter, live-streamed himself playing video games, and seemed to enjoy every second of the outrage he created. He wasn't just infamous for what he did. He was infamous for how much he appeared to relish being hated. And when the legal system finally caught up with him, the crimes that sent him to prison weren't even the ones that made him a household name. Martin Shkreli was born on March 17, 1983, in Brooklyn, New York. His parents were Albanian immigrants who worked blue-collar jobs to support their family. Shkreli showed early academic promise and graduated from high school at 16. He attended Baruch College in Manhattan, where he studied business administration. But Shkreli's real education came from his work in the financial sector. While still a teenager, he began working at hedge funds, learning the mechanics of investment and the art of manipulation that would define his career. By his mid-20s, Shkreli had launched his own hedge fund called MSMB Capital Management. From 2009 to 2011, he ran the fund with an approach that federal prosecutors would later describe as fraudulent from the start. According to court documents, Shkreli lied to investors about the fund's performance, inflated returns, and eventually lost nearly all of their money through poor trades. Rather than admit the losses, he created a second fund called MSMB Healthcare and used money from new investors to pay back the old ones. It was a classic scheme, moving money in circles to hide the fact that the original investments had vanished. In 2011, Shkreli founded Retrofin, a pharmaceutical company focused on developing treatments for rare diseases. But according to prosecutors, he used Retrofin as his personal bank account to settle debts from his failed hedge funds. He allegedly paid off disgruntled investors using company money and stock, all without proper authorization from a board. When Retrofin's leadership discovered what he was doing, they fired him in 2014. That same year, he founded another pharmaceutical company called Turing, later renamed Vira. It was here that Shkreli would make the decision that turned him into a national symbol of corporate cruelty. In August 2015, Turing acquired the rights to Daraprim, a medication used to treat toxoplasmosis, a parasitic infection that can be life-threatening for people with weakened immune systems, including pregnant women, babies, and HIV patients. The drug had been on the market since 1953 and cost around $13.50 per pill. Overnight, Shkreli raised the price to $750 per pill, a 5,000% increase. The reaction was immediate and furious. Medical organizations sent letters calling the increase unjustifiable. Doctors warned that hospitals couldn't afford to keep the drug in stock. Patients faced impossible choices between treatment and financial ruin. But Shkreli didn't back down. Instead, he went on the offensive, appearing on television to defend the price hike as capitalism at work. He argued that the profits would fund research into better treatments, though critics pointed out that Turing had no scientists or laboratories. He claimed patient assistance programs would ensure access, but hospitals reported being unable to quickly obtain the medication for uninsured patients. During a congressional hearing in February 2016, Shkreli invoked his Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination and refused to answer questions. Afterward, he tweeted insults about the lawmakers who had questioned him. What many people didn't realize was that while Shkreli was becoming America's most hated businessman for the Daraprim scandal, federal investigators were already building a case against him for his earlier hedge fund fraud. In December 2015, the FBI arrested him at his Manhattan apartment. Prosecutors charged him with securities fraud related to MSMB and Retrofin. The indictment alleged that Shkreli had run his companies like a scheme, using each new venture to pay off losses from the previous one. He had lied to investors about performance, hidden catastrophic losses, and used corporate assets to settle personal debts. Shkreli's trial began in June 2017. Throughout the proceedings, he maintained his combative public persona. He live-streamed commentary, harassed journalists on social media, and seemed to treat the trial as entertainment. But in August 2017, after 5 days of deliberation, the jury found him guilty on 3 counts: securities fraud and conspiracy. In March 2018, the judge sentenced him to 7 years in federal prison and ordered him to forfeit $7.4 million. Importantly, Shkreli wasn't convicted for raising the price of Daraprim. That action, as unethical as many found it, wasn't illegal under federal law. His prison sentence came from defrauding hedge fund investors years before he became Pharma Bro. But the story didn't end there. In January 2020, the Federal Trade Commission and 7 states filed a civil lawsuit against Shkreli, Vira, and his business partner, Kevin Mullidy. The suit alleged that after raising Daraprim's price, Shkreli engaged in anti-competitive conduct to block generic competitors from entering the market. He created exclusive supply agreements that prevented other companies from accessing the ingredients needed to make generic versions. He used restricted distribution systems that made it nearly impossible for competitors to obtain samples for testing. In January 2022, while Shkreli was still in prison, a federal judge ruled against him. The court ordered him to pay $64.6 million and banned him permanently from ever working in the pharmaceutical industry again. The judge described his conduct as egregious, deliberate, repetitive, and dangerous. An appeals court upheld the ban in 2024, rejecting Shkreli's argument that it violated his free speech rights. Shkreli was released from prison in May 2022 after serving about 4 years of a sentence. Since then, he has attempted various ventures, including cryptocurrency projects and a pharmaceutical research platform, all while still owing tens of millions in court-ordered payments. The lifetime ban prevents him from any role in the drug industry, including consulting or even discussing industry matters with friends in the field. What drove someone to act with such apparent disregard for consequences? Was it genuine belief in his own brilliance, or something darker? Shkreli seemed to view rules as obstacles for other people, guidelines that didn't apply to someone as smart as he believed himself to be. He treated criticism as validation that he was succeeding where others failed. And when the world reacted with anger, he interpreted it not as a sign that he had crossed ethical lines, but as proof that he was willing to make hard choices that weaker people couldn't stomach. Joseph Allen Schreibvogel. How does someone go from running a roadside zoo in rural Oklahoma to becoming the most infamous zookeeper in American history? Joseph Maldonado Passage didn't need a crystal ball to predict his future. He built it himself, one reckless decision at a time, broadcasting every outrageous moment on social media until the line between entertainment and crime dissolved completely. His story became so bizarre that millions watched it unfold on Netflix during a global pandemic, making him a household name for all the wrong reasons. But long before the cameras arrived, he was already plotting something far darker than reality television. Joseph Allen Schreibvogel was born on March 5, 1963, in Garden City, Kansas. His family later moved to Texas, where he graduated from Pilot Point High School. After a brief stint as police chief in the small town of Eastvale, he opened a pet store with his brother. But in 1997, his brother passed away in a car accident. Grief consumed him. He sold the pet store and used the money to establish something completely different. The Greater Wynwood Exotic Animal Park opened in Oklahoma, a sprawling zoo filled with tigers, lions, and other big cats. He called it the GW Zoo, a tribute to his late brother Gerald Wayne. For years, the park drew visitors who wanted to pet tiger cubs and watch magic shows. Joe, as everyone called him, became a local character known for his blonde mullet, his guns, and his tigers. He traveled across America, hosting cub-petting events at malls and fairs. He filmed an online talk show where he discussed everything from politics to his personal life. He even ran for president in 2016 and for Oklahoma governor in 2018, though neither campaign gained traction. To the outside world, he was eccentric but harmless, a flamboyant showman who loved his animals and wasn't afraid to be himself. But beneath the spectacle, problems were growing. Animal welfare activists had been watching the GW Zoo for years, documenting what they considered dangerous conditions and questionable breeding practices. One critic stood out among the rest. Carol Baskin, who operated Big Cat Rescue, a sanctuary in Tampa, Florida, made it her mission to expose what she saw as Joe's mistreatment of animals. She published reports about his park online, filed complaints with authorities, and urged people to boycott his business. The attention damaged Joe's reputation and threatened his income. What started as professional disagreement turned personal. Joe didn't respond quietly. He created videos mocking Baskin, posted them on social media, and made increasingly hostile statements about her. He even filmed segments at a zoo where he pretended to harm a dummy version of her. His obsession became public entertainment for his followers, who watched as the feud spiraled. But Joe wasn't satisfied with online threats. Behind the scenes, he was planning something far worse. In July 2016, Joe began actively searching for someone willing to commit harm against Baskin. He wanted her gone permanently. The plot took shape over the following year. In November 2017, Joe approached Alan Glover, an employee at his park. Joe handed him $3,000 in cash with instructions to travel from Oklahoma to South Carolina and then to Florida. The mission was clear. Joe promised thousands more once the job was completed. Glover took the money and left, but he never followed through. Whether he lost his nerve or never intended to go through with it remains unclear. What mattered was that Joe didn't stop trying. By December 2017, Joe believed he had found someone more reliable. He arranged a meeting to discuss his plan in detail. What Joe didn't know was that the person sitting across from him wasn't a hired hand. It was an undercover FBI agent. The conversation was recorded. Joe discussed payment, logistics, and exactly what he wanted done. He wasn't vague. He wasn't joking. Federal agents had everything they needed. While Joe was plotting harm, he was also committing serious wildlife offenses. In October 2017, he expected new animals to arrive at his park but didn't have enough space. His solution was simple and illegal. He personally shot and ended the lives of 5 endangered tigers to free up cages. No veterinarian was present. No proper procedures were followed. Beyond that, he had been falsifying paperwork for years. When selling tigers, lions, and other animals across state lines, Joe marked official forms claiming the animals were donations for exhibition purposes only. In reality, he was selling them for profit. These acts broke both the Lacey Act and the Endangered Species Act. Federal investigators from the FBI, U.S. Marshals Service, Fish and Wildlife Service, and Oklahoma Department of Wildlife Conservation built their case throughout 2018. On September 5, 2018, a grand jury returned an indictment. Joe was charged with 2 counts of attempting to arrange harm against Baskin and 17 wildlife offenses. He was arrested that same month and held in custody. The trial began on March 25, 2019. Prosecutors presented the recordings from the undercover agent meeting. They showed evidence of Joe's payments to Glover. They documented the wildlife violations with veterinary reports and falsified paperwork. After deliberating for just a few hours, the jury returned guilty verdicts on all 19 counts. Joe was convicted on 2 murder-for-hire charges, 8 Lacey Act violations, and 9 Endangered Species Act violations. Sentencing came on January 22, 2020. Judge Scott Pock handed down 22 years in federal prison. Joe was also ordered to pay restitution and face supervised release after completing his sentence. The judge made it clear that fame and personality couldn't excuse criminal behavior. Joe's attorneys later appealed, arguing that the 2 murder-for-hire convictions should have been grouped together as one since they involved the same target. A federal appeals court agreed. On January 28, 2022, Joe was resentenced to 21 years, reducing his term by 12 months. Today, Joseph Maldonado Passage remains incarcerated at Federal Medical Center Fort Worth in Texas. His projected release date is in 2037. The GW Zoo has closed. His story became the subject of Netflix's wildly popular documentary series Tiger King, which premiered in March 2020, introducing millions to his rise and fall. He continues seeking clemency, writing letters to politicians, and maintaining his innocence despite the recorded evidence. His case raises difficult questions about obsession, revenge, and the dangers of unchecked ego. When does a rivalry cross into something dangerous? How does someone convince themselves that harming another person is justified? And in an age where everything is filmed and shared, why did Joe believe he could plot such actions without consequence? The answers remain as complicated as the man himself. A reminder that sometimes the most outrageous stories hide the most serious crimes.